Claudia and Elizabeth, you are the first ones to arrive. How are you doing this afternoon? How has your day been so far?
Good, kind of cold. You are mute?
I just found that. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a little bit cold, but not that cold, considering that always in rainy days it's like not really cold, but after the rain ends, I guess that's when it starts to be colder. That's my perception, at least. Fernando, Diana, how's it going?
Hi.
Hi.
Good. Are you still in one piece? Still healthy, still hanging in there. And Diana, you were going to say?
No, nothing.
Okay, sorry. So what about the rest of the guys? Are they frying sopaipillas or something? They're not here?
I think they have problems with their connection, maybe.
Yeah.
Profe, la Daniela
Fernando.
Pop no se va a poder conectar porque en Constitución ahí está el temporal muy fuerte y se le cortó la luz.
Daniela, I got a message, a mail from Claudia as well. She said that she was not going to, I mean, same reason, but I don't know if she was from the same city or not. Is it really complex, these rainy and windy days that we're not having electricity? That happened to me probably 4 or 5 days ago as well. So I totally understand that, particularly when you have not charged your cell phones or computers, right? Laptops. So yeah. Well, anyway, we're recording the class just in case. So if you're not here in the session, attending the session, you can watch this later, right? So do you have any comments? Anything new about your life? Anything, you know, any hobbies that you have taken up? Any issues that you might have? Any challenges in the context that we are actually living in? Still single life?
Always.
Okay. All right. So no updates.
I'm moving to another house, but they put like a mandatory quarantine from Friday, so I have to move in literally 2 days, and actually I'm packing while I'm listening to this class. So I'm trying my best to do 2 things at a time.
All right. Multitasking. So, are you still in the process of packing? Almost finishing? Just starting?
Mid, because we have like everything separated, but we still have to put them in the main boxes that we're gonna move. So
It is so important to remember to label boxes for, later purposes when you want to find something. And if it's not labeled, it takes twice or 3 times the time that you take when it's not unlabeled. So try to label boxes and be very specific. That is something I learned after moving a couple of times.
Yeah, but lucky is we don't have like that many things to move, so we just have to be careful with them because most of them are like I like to collect toys and stuff and CDs, so I'm trying to be really careful with how I put them in boxes so them not to arrive broken or anything like that.
Alrighty. So good luck with that process. Good luck.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other updates in your lives?
I think it's kind of difficult have new experiences because we all the time home.
Yeah, you're right about that. But sometimes you can take up old habits or not habits, but hobbies, right? In like collecting stuff, playing an instrument, go back singing, start writing something like, sometimes writing about your own emotions, like keeping a diary or writing short stories, tales, or poems can help you to express, your inner world outside. And even if you're not posting this for other people to read it, still can help you as a way to understand what's going on with you. Um, Learning how to dance something, taking up another language. I don't know, many things that people are doing. People who particularly have time. Maybe you're still struggling with organizing your times. Um, if I go back in time to my first year in college, probably organizing my time to study was one of the main issues. One of the main problems was to find and allot the correct amount of time for each one of the responsibilities that I had. Um, so, yeah, but I totally agree with Elizabeth that sometimes it's hard to find, if we're not leaving the house, new stuff to do, right? Um, any other updates? No one has anything to tell, to say? How was your recess week? Was it good? Was it enough to get some rest?
Yes, it was good.
Yes,
I
really good.
rest a lot.
Okay. Fernando, you were saying as well after Nelson?
Yes. Well, I learned how fast sopaipillas. Sopaipillas are made.
Pasadas?
Are made.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, our mate, our cooked mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you.
With
All right.
my
All right.
granny.
Okay, good. Okay. Next time, take a picture, all right? And you can share it here if you want, of course. Okay. Um, I tried with calzones rotos, so I prepared them twice and a couple of times of APS as well, and they're really good. They're really good. So okay, guys, in connection to the class, I think it's good to review a little bit some of the concepts. Um, if you remember, we started the semester talking about some theoretical concepts in general. So we're going to start the class with some questions. We're going to answer these questions throughout the session. And by the end of the session, you will take home an activity, a task. Okay? And I'm going to give you an example how the task is supposed to be carried out. Okay, so these are the questions that we're going to cover in this session, and maybe you are already ready to answer the questions. So that would be interesting to discuss if you already know the answers. So the first question is, what is sound segmentation and why is it useful? Okay. Anyone would like to answer the question? So if you don't know the answer, we will answer this question, right? Why is sound segmentation useful, and actually what is it? Okay, not to get confused with spelling, right? Because if we take, for example, the word sound and we spell the word sound is spelled S-O-U-N-D, right? Then, if we talk about sound segmentation, we focus on sounds, not letters. So we should say that the word sound contains the following phonemes. S, the diphthong ow, n, d, sound. So these are the phonemes or the sounds, right? Which make up this particular word. Okay, so sound segmentation. Why is it important? Why is it relevant when we are learning a language, and also when we're learning how to teach a language? This is what we're going to discuss. The next question, if we call it number 2, what does phonetics study, and in what way? Do you know the answer to that question?
The study of speech.
Exactly. It's a study of speech or speech sounds. And in what way is it similar or different from phonology? If you don't know, that's okay, because we're going to cover that, the answer to the question, right? The next is, what is a speech chain? What is it? Do you know what it deals with? What is it about?
How the sound is pronounced.
All right, exactly. How the sound is produced, and all the process, right? And all the process when the sound is produced, because it's a mental process, right? It takes place in the brain first, and there are, you know, specific instructions given to the muscles to articulate that sound. But what happens with the sound later, after it leaves the oral cavity? You remember that it travels, it's transmitted, then it's perceived, right, by a listener. So we're going to discuss that process, okay, to this session. Number 4 is spelling consistent in representing the sounds of the English language. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. I'm not sure. So we're going to discuss this consistency, right? If it is consistent or not, the spelling and the sounds that are basically the letters being pronounced. And the last one, how can we describe phonemes? How can we describe vowel sounds? How can we describe consonant sounds? Right, so that's part of the session, right? So let's take a look at sound segmentation. But I really don't want to read this. I want you to participate as much as possible. So anyone volunteers to read this slide? Can I pick?
Yeah, teacher, here.
Nelson, go on.
Teacher,
Thank you.
if I say bad a word, please tell me, okay?
Sure.
Okay. Knowing a language includes knowing the sounds of that language. Therefore, we are able to segment a continuous stream of speech into distinct distinct parts and recognize the parts in other words. In other words, everyone who knows a language knows how to segment sentence into words and words into sounds.
Thank you so much. So exactly, knowing a language. So we know Spanish, right? So when we hear someone talking in Spanish, we're able to recognize how many words the speaker mentioned in a sentence. And if we know English, also we can understand that in the sentence. Knowing the language includes knowing the sounds of that language. If we hear this first sentence here, we can understand and identify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words, right? And we're able to understand that the sentence that I just read and contains 9 words because we're able to identify the initial sound of a word and the final sound. So we know that the following sound is part of a different word. In this case, it's an indefinite article, right? And then we know that is the first sound or the initial sound of the word language, and it's not part of this one. So knowing the language, we know that it's not L, and language is one word, right? It's part of the word language, and G would be the final sound of this word. So the next word is a vowel sound, right? Includes, and this word ends in S. So knowing a language implies that we're able to segment the sounds. An utterance or a sentence, we can divide that into words, right? And we can identify the boundaries, right? The limits. When it's the first or initial sound and where is the final sound of the word, right? The boundaries of a word. Now, another skill that we have when we know a language is that, for example, we have the word, I don't know, let's take this word, pods, okay, pods. And we know that the word pods contains 1, 2, 3, and 4 sounds. In received pronunciation or in sort of British dialect. And in General American, we may find an because General American is a rhotic language in general, particularly the General American dialect is rhotic. So it contains usually this sounds, particularly at the end of words. But so we're able to identify in one word, parts, how many phonemes make up that word. So parts, I can say, okay, I have p, a, t, s. So I have 4 phonemes or 4 sounds, right? And how can I do that? Because I know the language. Right? If I know the language, as I know Spanish, I can say that lápiz is composed of 5 sounds, right? So that is something that happens when we know a language. We have a knowledge which is called, phonological awareness. Okay, and phonological awareness is taught at very early ages when children are in primary school, right? And in English-speaking countries, they are taught this phonological awareness. So students, just like in Chilean classrooms, they are taught phonological awareness, right? In Spanish. So we're taught to identify the sounds in a word. We're taught to identify, for example, rhymes. Which word can rhyme with, for example, speech? Speech. Which rhymes with speech? I can think of beach. I don't know you, right? But speech rhymes with beach, right? How do I know that? Well, I focused on the last vowel sound, or the only one in this case, and the final consonant. And this section is called the rhyme. So this is taught at very early ages, right? And this phonological awareness is knowing how to segment sounds. Sounds in one sentence, like identifying the words, and also within a word, identify which is the initial sound, which is the final sound, right? And even we can replace a sound, right? For example, nose, nose. The initial sound is n, right? So if I change n for sh, for example, instead of nose, I get shows, right? Shows. So that's the skill that we have. We can even play with sounds. We can replace them, right? We can identify them, etc., etc. And this is a skill that we have when we or we acquire when we know a language, right? And if we know a language, we can even ignore certain factors that may affect comprehension. For example, someone is speaking like this with a very high pitch level, or something speaking like this would not make any difference. I might be able to understand them in Spanish or in English, but not someone speaking Japanese or Chinese, Mandarin, I don't know, right? Because if I hear someone using a language that I'm not familiar with, I'm not going to be able to segment the sounds. I'm not going to be able to identify the words, how many words, which is the beginning of a word, which is the final sound of a word. And even if I take a very quick course on Japanese, if the person speaks fast, right, or slow, that's going to affect my comprehension. If the person is coughing, right, probably I'm not going to understand anything, even if the 1 week Japanese course was excellent, right? So these factors, if I'm not fully proficient in a language, are going to affect how I identify, right, the speech sounds in this language. Okay, now we have a definition of phonetics and phonology here that I would like someone in the room to read. Nelson was the first volunteer, so hopefully we can have a female student, a girl, a woman, a lady, a she. Mijirai not because she's not here. Any volunteer?
I can.
Thank you so much, Diana. Go on, please.
The whole text.
That can help you for your answer. Okay. I mean, you can read up to, I don't know, whatever you want, and then we can ask. You can ask someone else to replace you.
Okay. Phonetics and phonology. Phonetics is the term for the study, description, and classification of speech sounds, particularly how sounds are produced, transmitted, and received. The science of phonetics aims to describe all the sound of all the world's languages. Phonetics deals with the production of speech sounds by humans, often without prior knowledge of the language being spoken. Phonology is about patterns or sounds, especially different patterns of sounds in different languages, or within each language, different patterns of sound in different positions in words, etc.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. There's a comma missing there. Thank you so much. So that's basically the difference, right? Phonetics describes and classifies speech sounds, how they are produced, how they are transmitted, and how they are received, which is connected with the different sub-branches of phonetics, right? Articulatory phonetics, dealing with the production, how the sounds are articulated. Acoustic phonetics, which deals with how sounds are transmitted, and auditory phonetics, which deals with how the sounds are perceived by the listener. Phonetics tries to or aims to describe speech sounds spoken in any language, any language. But phonology is more specific because let's suppose that we have 100 sounds discovered, studied, and classified by phonetics, right? By phoneticians. So out of these 100 sounds, Spanish uses only a certain number of these sounds, right? English also has or uses a number of these sounds, but not all of the 100. English has a schwa, for example, which is not present in Spanish. English has a trap, which is not present in Spanish. So there are sounds that are present in some languages and in others are not. So that's what phonology deals with. In finding the patterns, the possible combinations that in a language is allowed and which combinations are not allowed. Okay, so that's why phonology is more specific in the way in relation to identifying which sounds go with which ones and which combinations are not possible. For example, the final sound in sing, which is quite nasal, is allowed in English in final position, right? But you're not going to find a word starting with the sound is not allowed in initial position. Okay, a combination of a three consonant cluster. Cluster is the word for a group of something, a cluster. Okay, so a consonant cluster made of, for example, 3 consonant sounds is allowed in English, like in the word strange, stir. We have this combination that is allowed in English, right? But I think this combination in initial position is not allowed in Spanish. I think we do not have this consonant cluster in initial position in Spanish. Okay, so that's phonology. Phonology is more specific to how a specific language, right, behaves. Okay, whereas phonetics is more general, studies all of the sounds, the way they are produced, transmitted, and received, and this has to do with acoustic auditory, and articulatory phonetics. The basis for this course is articulatory phonetics because the aim for this course is to identify and classify and study, right, how sounds are articulated. Okay, this is not a course on acoustic phonetics or auditory phonetics, which it's a course that you can find in other universities, right, that are more focused into the linguistic aspects of learning a language. This is a speech chain, right? And the speech chain is quite connected or related to what phonetics studies, right? Because phonetics deals with the process of articulating the sound or producing the sound, transmitting the sound, and receiving the sound, right? So in the articulation or production, which muscles, which articulators, in which way the sounds are produced, this is connected with articulatory phonetics, right? This part of the, so when you speak, someone listens to you, the sounds are, it's actually the airflow or the airstream, the airstream which comes from your lungs. That's why the airstream is called pulmonic, because the way we speak, we used the airstream coming from the lungs, right? So it's pulmonic airstream. And to be more specific, is pulmonic egressive, right? Because it comes out of the oral cavity, right? Because when we speak, we breathe in, and the air that comes into the lungs is expelled, right? It goes through, right, the vocal tract, and as it leaves, that's why it's called egressive. And we speak, producing sounds with this airflow, right? Which is, basically sound waves that travel in environment, and then the sound waves are interpreted, right, in the ear. The ear receives, right, all the signals that are sent to the brain to be interpreted. And in the process, when you're talking or speaking, right, you listen to yourself, so you're getting some auditory feedback, and when you listen, you can re-articulate or change what you said in order to be understood. Also, here you read facial movements, right? You look at the person you're talking to, not in my case, not with you guys, but when you are talking face to face to someone, you look at the person, and through the facial movements, you actually can understand if the person is comprehending what you're saying or not, and that is sort of feedback also for you to restart what you just said. So it's an interesting process. As I already uploaded this PowerPoint presentation. At the bottom, you can see a link here that if you want more specific information, you can go there and read on your own a very detailed description of the speech chain process. Okay, I wrote here pulmonic aggressive because sometimes in other languages, speakers may use egressive airflow that it's taken in to produce sound. Like when you try to whistle, instead of using airflow coming out when you whistle, when you say, and you can actually whistle with, taking air into your oral cavity. If you haven't tried that, it's quite an experience. When you do this, I'm whistling, but I'm taking in airflow, right? So in that case, it wouldn't be egressive whistling, right? So it's important to remember this concept, pulmonic egressive airflow or airstream, because for many languages, this is a rule. This is what it is. But in other languages, it's not necessarily pulmonic and not necessarily egressive. This information you can find here in the link at the bottom. Okay? The problems with spelling. What's the problem that we can find with spelling? I'm looking for a volunteer. At any moment, if you have any doubts or questions, please raise your hand. You know, there is a little hand there, and ask the question in English or Spanish, all right? Either is fine, because what I care about is that you understand. I don't want to be talking about something that you're not really understanding, okay? So that at any moment, interrupt me, raise your hand, and we can discuss your question in English or Spanish. Now, Juan Pablo, are you there? Juan Pablo?
I can read, teacher.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Go on, please.
The spelling or orthography does not consistently represent the sounds of language. Some problems with the ordinary spelling. The same sound may be represented by many letters or combination of letters. He, people, K, believes, says. I don't know how to say it. Says.
If you read the beginning, the same sound may be represented by many letters. So it's the same sound in all of the words. The same sound.
Machine, Caesar, Cias, C, Omovia. The same letter may be represent a variety of sounds. Father, village, badly, made, many. Many.
Yes, thank you so much, Elizabeth. So these are the problems that spelling may cause, right? We may face with when we try to see spelling in English, and we make try to represent the spelling with the sounds. In other words, for example, if I read this word in Spanish, I know that I have here casa, and I get casa, right? And spelling is very straightforward in Spanish because there's a one-to-one correspondence between the letter and the sound, or the grapheme and the phoneme, right? In English, it's not so straightforward. It's not like a one-to-one correspondence because sometimes you get, and this is what we're going to see now here, right? One problem is the same sound. In this case, the sound E, long tense E, can be represented by many letters, different spellings. For example, as Elizabeth read, he can be spelled like that. People, key, believe, sees, machine, Caesar, sees, see, amoeba. E. In all of them, it's the same sound, but the spelling, as you can see, is completely different. Right? So that is one issue that we have in when we're learning and teaching English, is that orthography or spelling is not consistent. Okay? Another problem is number 2, read by Elizabeth, that we may have the same letter A, and A. But when we pronounce them, in the first one we have father, long A, village, we have short legs E, badly, we have the trap, made, we have the diphthong, and many, we have the monophthong E. So that's another problem. One letter, many sounds. One sound, many letters or many different spellings. Okay, so these are only 2 problems. Let's see what are the other problems that we might find when we're testing if spelling is consistent to represent the sounds of English language. Anybody would like to read? Maybe guys, you need a break, and maybe that's why you're not. I mean, of course, with all the respect and all the exceptions, maybe that's why you are a bit tired at the end of the day.
Yes.
Okay, so can we have a 10-minute break?
Okay.
Okay.
Alrighty, so I'm going to stop recording, and